and from who is the faithful witness, and the first begotten of the dead, and the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood, and hath made us kings and priests unto God and his Father. To him be glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen.
Long live the victory! Glory to the eternal kingdom! Long live the victory!
Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the floods. Who shall ascend to the hill of the Lord, or who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive the blessing from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is the generation of them that seek him, that seek thy face, O Jacob. Selah. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, even lift them up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Selah.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Makakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem Makakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Hashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into with this lesson, no enchantments against Jacob, and we know that that applies to the hopeful lake. Scriptures in the book of Numbers 23 and 23, which we'll get it. All right, and the lesson was inspired by a question that was on the comment board, and in fact, let's get to it. Pull up this question, and we'll respond to it. In this lesson, Lord will is edifying, all right, and it comforts, all right. The brother who asked it, I believe it's a brother. So let's okay, here we go. Now, this was a lesson done a long time ago, about 4 years ago, entitled Eve the Witch, Mysteries of Witchcraft. I didn't even listen to the lesson, I'm telling, but but when you go down, all right, you have somebody had a question, all right, Adrian, 144, I believe it's a brother, but It's a lot if it's a sister, don't know for sure, but most likely it's a brother. But just to go into the question, all right, and then we'll answer with precepts. And like I said, Lord will, this comforts, this person's spirit and is edifying to the church. Now, when we go into the questions at Shalom, very edifying lesson. But I have a question. What if a two-thirds of anybody were doing witchcraft on me? Is there a way I can make it backfire on them, or just have to fast and pray, and Yahweh Shai will punish them when He returns? Okay, and I'm gonna say, just dealing with this question, the lesson gonna be geared towards the latter. Fast and pray, and Yahweh Shai will punish them when He returns. You know, because this is spiritual warfare. And we can't get in the tick for tack. I don't know exactly what the scenario is. I don't know if we're dealing with Eve is doing manipulation, or whatever. He's in contact with people that's into that. But either way, you can't get back it into a back and forth. Someone trying to cast a spell on you that you try to reverse it with it. Nah, man, we in the time now. We should be in the spirit. And separated. Our decision making. Should become on a level. To where we're not even in the position now. Being what we do, we know that even the elites are trying to put witchcraft on us. Trying to put enchantments on us. Saying prayers. Okay, saying you best believe they're trying to put enchantments on GMS and the leaders and certain brothers. You best believe because we wrestle with spiritual wickedness in high places. But see, we as long as we operate in Yahweh Shai, we have a hedge. Okay, so the main thing in this time is just being in the spirit. Okay, which keeps us within the hedge to where none of these things work. And we're gonna get into some precepts. All right, to expound on the first. Let's start here. Let's start with let's get this in St. John. So when you get the book of St. John, chapter 8. All right, this is the book of St. John, chapter 8, verse 32. And it says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Because we first come into the truth, we first come into this understanding, you know, brothers are really, the apostles, starting with the apostles and elders on down. We first come into this thing, you know, brothers is really preaching demons off us, man. Because through Yahushua is the Lord has a ministry of men that are teaching in the name of Yahushua. Well, this preaching, we first come in, this preaching is getting demons and enchantments off of us, man. It's making us free. Okay. Now that's the beginning. You see, that's phase one, getting disenchanted from this world. Okay. Through the preaching of Yahushua. You see, which that's power within itself. Okay, but that's the beginning, because the thing is to stay disenchanted from this world. Okay, and able to stay disenchanted, we gotta stay engaged with Yahushua. We gotta really be engaged, okay, with our power, because once we get set free from the enchantments, it's on. Because the rest of the time we're in the truth. The thing is to fight, because that's part of the fight, to stay disenchanted from this world. Because as long as we in this world, there's always going to be a pull to try to bring us back, because we in spiritual warfare. Okay, and there's people that we come across, because when you go here, let's go here, Ephesians 6:10 says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might." Okay, and to be strong in the Lord, well, we have to use the tools, that we've been given, and like you said, like the brother mentioned, praying and fasting. Okay, that's part of our tool belt. And especially in these days, man, prayer, talking to the Most High, being specific, dealing with our situation, it's vital in these times. I'm learning it, now. To pray often and be specific. You know, pray. In the moment you gotta be, you gotta prostrate yourself, put your hands up. Okay, because you can shoot prayers all throughout the day. You know, you in your mind, praying. You see, and this keeps us strong in the Lord. Reading. Okay, being tapped into the Spirit. You see, verse 11 said, "Put on the whole armor of the Most High, that you may stand against the wiles of the devil." And we know that word wiles. All right, one of the definitions is a method. Okay, and what we have to understand, one of the wiles, okay, of Satan is to put spirits on people. Satan put spirits on people that's around us. Whether it's co-worker, certain family members, a random person at Walmart, the grocery store. He strategically puts, spirits on people, to agitate us, to get us out of pocket, to get us caught up in some, back and forth. You see, but we got to be in the spirit of running to our power, okay? Because if we are in the house shop where there's no enchantment, okay, they can penetrate. You see, for Satan to get up Job was the first thing that had to be done, okay, was what? The Most High had to move that hedge. You see? Matter of fact, let's get there real quick. We'll go back to Ephesians. Let's go back to the book of Ephesians. Get Job 1. This is Job 1 and 8. It says, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth the Most High and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Though Job fear the Most High for naught, has not thou made an hedge about him and about his house and about all he hath on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth thy hand and touch all that he hath, and he will feed to thy face." Okay, so before Satan, could penetrate Job, to start to interfere, and jack up Job and his situation, do everything he was doing, because he was allowed to wreak havoc on Job. Before he could do that, the Most High had to lift up a hedge. You see, Satan, he told the Most High, like, he protected his family, his his wealth, everything's protected. I can't get in. You see, turn that hedge off, and then let's test them. Okay. Well, the point is, there's a hedge around, the hopeful elect. Now we know Job was of the elect, and this story was meant, to be a testimony for us. But also it's a story of Israel, but then on the personal level, it's a story for all of us, man. There are times when the Lord, is allowing us to be tested. Okay. Well, what do we get from Job? Job never, okay, lost his integrity. He stayed faithful to his power and prevailed. So there's moments when we're tested in certain, people, that's around us, that's a test, and we have to operate in his wisdom and pass the test. You see? So when you go to Ephesians 6 and 12, it said, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Okay, so from the elites on down, to common people, we're in spiritual warfare. Okay, even the elites, they do particular things to try to counter what we're doing on the right hand. They do their psyops and particular things to try to counter what we're doing. Okay, because of spiritual warfare. You see, so from the elites on down to the common people, Satan is strategically putting demons on particular people. Okay, and that's our wrestle is in the spirit. That's why we got to be in the spirit. You can't, because the flesh and blood is carnality. There's no victory in carnality. Okay, the victory is in the spirit. Our strength is being in the spirit, being tapped in with Yahweh. Okay, and as you keep reading, verse 13, wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Yeah, so now we have to have on the whole armor. We have to be spiritually armored in these times, man. As you go into it says, stand therefore as a spiritual war. All right, which requires spiritual armor. You see, spiritual weaponry. It says, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness. Okay, and it said, have your loins girt about with truth. Yeah, because when you go to girding your loins, this means to make yourself ready to be active. So being active in the truth, man. You see, really applying this word. Okay, sacrificing, to study. Sacrificing, to prayer, to reading. Being active, man. That's the thing that keeps us, within the hedges, being active, being occupied in this thing, man. Have our loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, man, our conduct. Because righteous behavior, deflects, okay, the attacks of Satan. You see, we're still gonna be tried, but righteousness, okay, keeps us, from being destroyed, drawn back in. You see, through faith, it is not, being perfect in the law, okay. It's being in the spirit, being righteous in the spirit, following Yahweh. Okay, being a good brother, applying his wisdom in our day to day, doing the right thing, and in every situation, man. Even how we deal with people in the world, just doing right. Doing the right thing, applying this, like I said, applying this wisdom, becoming this wisdom, man. Because this truth is grooming us in righteousness, man. It's teaching us how to be righteous, man, from scratch. You see, and righteousness puts a shield on us. That's why even you go here. Because the thing is being pleasing to our power. And we don't have to worry about anything, man. You see, being pleasing to our power, and we don't have to worry about anything. It's Proverbs 16:7 says, when a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Okay? He make even his enemies to be at peace with him. So if a man's ways please the Lord, that's a defense. Being pleasing to our power is a defense for us, okay, in this spiritual war. So there needs to be emphasis on what being pleasing to our power. Okay? That's why I say even in verse 8, what it says, better is a little with righteousness. We don't have the wealth, the status, and the clout of this world, but we're able to be pleasing to our power. Okay? Within this grace period. You see, so better is little with righteousness than great revenues without right. Yeah, we're much better off than, okay, a celebrity. You see, the upper echelon of our people of this world, this age, we're far better off, man, because they're just open up to all type of demons and enchantments, and they, have to continue to do rituals to appease the left hand. You see, which is making them enemies to our power. Okay, so we're in a far much better state, okay, to have our little, but with righteousness, man, serving our power. You see? So that breastplate of righteousness is a defense. You know, do right by people. Be fair. You know, be wise as a serpent. You're not an open book. Okay, but in our dealings, you know, be fair. You know, be considerate. You see, and that goes a long way with our power, man. Obedience, righteousness, man. Righteous intent. So this is the book of Proverbs. No, it's like go back to the book of Ephesians. So going back to the book of Ephesians, chapter 6. This is book of Ephesians 6 and 14. It says, you stand therefore having your loins girded about with truth and having on the breastplate of righteousness and your feet shod, okay, with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Okay, being sharp, you know, in the scriptures, you know, ready to teach. You see, because this the good news. Okay, and one of the things Yahweh Shai, you know, commanded us to do was to teach, man. You know, had to be prepared with the gospel, you know, to preach. You see, to go forth with this word, you know, and that keeps us within the hedge, man, staying active in his ministry. Okay, because the gospel is the downfall of Esau, man. Make that the, you know, we make that the focal point, the downfall of Esau, because that's one of the headlines of the good news and how he's going to follow through Yahweh Shai, man. You know, and that's the good news. You see, the curses are going to be lifted off us, man. Okay, we're going to be changed. You know, we're getting family back, we're getting the earth back. Okay, we're getting back that paradise, man. Okay, it says above all, taking the shield of faith. Yeah, the shield of faith which blocks. Okay, that's why I say, well, will you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Yeah, because there's no telling how much wicked intent, you know, that people have against us, man. We're on the internet teaching where, you know, we don't know who's listening, you know, with ill intent. You see? But it's through faith, man, we're able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. You know, if Satan get ready to come, you know, even like that juice was a major test. You know, and the body of Yahweh shall show faith. You know, that was a little, you know, a prelude to the sea hill. You know, to show us, look, we're gonna have to make a hard stance in righteousness, man, and show faith. And brothers and sisters, they good. Everybody came through on the other side good. They were shielded by faith. You know, so those threats of Satan, they couldn't, you know, those threats of Esau couldn't get through. You know, so we gotta have that shield of faith. Okay, and faith blocks out everything, man. You know, doubt, you know, fear, and we all, you know, go through these things, man. You see, but it's faith that keeps us grounded and understand, like, oh, no, I'm good. You know, the Lord, He is. You know, nah, He is, I'm good. You know, so above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, man. So you in a situation, you know, to speak with this Jake, like I don't know the detail, whatever it might be, you know, but through faith, man, nah, nothing is going to be able to penetrate the elect. You know, since what it said, well, matter of fact, let's get this. Here's the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, verse 20. It says, and I will make thee unto this people a fence, brazen wall, and they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee. You see? For I am with thee to save thee and to deliver thee, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim al Shah. So the Lord has made, a fence, brazen wall around the ministry. Okay? And that's why these devils, they have been able to penetrate. We see, several times they were tempted to, go with their propaganda. It's like they're tempted, then they'll fall back. Why? Because they don't have the green light. See, when the Lord wants the famine of the word, then he's going to allow, this word to be removed. Okay? We'll see, we're operating behind the fence, brazen wall. Okay? Long as we stay on point, long as we stay in the spirit. Okay? And the Lord promised that they was going to fight against us. And it's from their least, from their least to your co-worker. Okay? There's a fight, there's an unseen fight against the truth, against his word. Okay? But as we have reassurance in the scriptures, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee to save thee and to deliver thee, said the Lord Yahweh Bashim al Shai. And I will deliver thee out of the hand of the wicked and redeem thee out of the hand of the terrible, man. So this devil, no matter what he has on his agenda, what he has in his mind, all right, and the Lord gonna deliver. You see? The Lord deliver us daily from enchantments and ill intent, from people unknowing. You see? Daily these things are happening, man. Okay? And while the Lord, is being their fence, brazen wall, okay, where we stay occupied in the ministry. Okay? So as we go into it, let's go back to the Ephesians. It's Ephesians 6. All right, and 16 says, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet. Oh my bad. Verse 17, it says, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of the Most High. Yeah. You see, in the helmet of salvation, the helmet protects, your head, your mind, and having a mindset, is towards salvation, doing things that pertain to salvation, being occupied in things that pertain to salvation, and then the sword of the Spirit, which, with these precepts, we're able to cut through enchantments, we're able to cut through the madness. When we read, we're able to cut through doubt, like I say, the enchantments. Okay? Because that's our offense is his word. Applying his word, that's our offense, man. And the sword of the Spirit. You see? Which is the word of the Most High, man. And verse 18 says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Yeah, so praying, just like, the brother mentioned, yeah, praying. Put up prayers. And, you don't have to, and you don't even have to be, certain instances you specifically put curses on certain people. But in general, man, just put curses on the wicked daily, put curses on the proud daily, put curses on all enemies of Yahweh Shai, and incorporate that into the prayer, and it's going to hit whoever it's meant to hit. You see? And watching, being on our watch, because it keeps us occupied. Being on our watch keeps us occupied and not entangled. There's another thing is we, apply wisdom. It keeps us, because wisdom is proactive, and wisdom is preventive. It's rarely reactive. It gives, it can be things happen in the moment. We have, wisdom to fall back on and react in wisdom. Okay. But most of the time, wisdom is preventive and proactive. Okay. We should be able to see around corners, to prevent from being, in certain situations. And, now, like I said, the Lord, there's certain things that He wants us to be in, for a test. Okay. Certain things that happen, kind of in the spirit of the moment. And that's the Lord, putting us in, a test. Okay. And then there's time where we apply wisdom. We should be able to see around the corner and avoid, a lot of things, man. Not being in the mix. You see, keep us from you peep, you be able to peep. The wisdom should make us observative. His wisdom should make us highly, observative. Okay, in our day to day. You see, where we can see things and stay out the mix. All right. It says praying always with all prayer and supplication in spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Okay. So let's go from there, because when you go to the book of Psalms, it's going back being pleasing to our power and staying within the hedge. All right. You go to Psalms 125. All right. In verse 3. It says, "For the rod of the wicked shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous, lest the righteous put forth his hands unto iniquity," man. You know? So going back to being pleasing to our power. You see, the rod of the wicked can't rest upon the lot of the righteous, lest the righteous put forth their hands unto iniquity, man. So we've been freed through the preaching of his word. And the thing is to stay free. Okay? To stay free, to remain free. You see? To what, man? Being pleasing to our power. Tapped into obedience, man. Tapped into laboring, watching, praying, fasting, using the tools, keeping their arm on, and by default, serving the Lord, puts the armor on us, man. Okay? Serving the Lord and applying this wisdom in our day to day, that's that puts that whole armor on us, man. Have a mindset on salvation beyond this world. Okay? That keeps us with the full armor. You see? It said, "Do good, O Lord," verse 4. "Do good, O Lord, unto those that be good, and to them that are upright in their hearts," which is their mind. Okay? So the thing is to stay pleasing to our power. And that keeps the hedge around us, man. Okay? Because even with Job, when he lifted the hedge, okay, Job continued to what? To do good. In the midst of the fire. That's a test too. To do right in the midst of the fire. Okay? And as we do right in the midst of the fire, well, eventually the Lord's going to bring that hedge back. Because we go through seasons in this thing. Ups, peaks and valleys, ups, downs, lows. Okay? But through it all, we gotta keep our integrity in the valley, as well as, okay, at the highs, we gotta keep integrity, man. Because the Lord is building character. Okay, prepping us for the ultimate test, which is the hour of temptation. You see, the Lord wants us to what? Apply this wisdom real time. Okay, I say, and it keeps us out of the mix. That's why when you go here, um, Look at this in the book of Baruch. All right, let's go to Baruch chapter 4, verse 27. It says, be of good comfort, O my children. And see, and that's the thing too, we have a comfort in the time. And we got to turn to our comforter, in the times of distress. And that's the Lord's conditioning us to turn to the comforter in distress. So that's why we have, certain trials, certain tests, on stage 1 is to turn to the comforter, which is his word, faith in his word, because like Satan, he can frustrate us, but nothing soothes the spirit like the word, meditating on scripture, reading the scripture, prayer, that's our comfort. You see, it said, for you shall be remembered of him that brought these things upon you, for as it were your mind to go astray from the Most High, so being returned, seek him 10 times more. And that's us being occupied in this thing, being occupied, and that's keeping us within the hedge. And when you go to the book of Sirach, chapter 4, in verse 28, it says, strive for the truth unto death, and the Lord shall fight for thee. So we're here to strive for the truth unto death, and the Lord's going to fight for us, man. See, we have a power that's fighting for us, man. And so there's a lot of battles that we don't see, that the Heavenly Father is fighting on our behalf. There's a lot of battles that's happening that we don't see, and that's the Lord fighting on our behalf. That's why, going back here to the title of the lesson, let's go here. So what we can do in our end, is keep striving, fighting, for righteousness' sake, man. You see, fighting for truth's sake, and it's fighting the flesh. That's striving for Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, man, fighting against this flesh. That's part of the fight as well. You see? So let's get to the numbers. All right, but like I say, man, there's a lot of battles, that we don't see happening, man, that the Lord, is preserving us. All right, Lord will, he's preserving us for salvation. You see? So that we have to fight all our battles in the spirit. Let's get to the point to where, your situation, someone trying to physically harm, and you got to do what you got to do in that moment. But for the most part, our war's in the spirit. You see? And we want to keep our spirit strong, being mighty in the Lord, which is tapped in. You see? It says, surely there is no enchantment against Jacob, and that's for the elect. Because these devils, you best believe, they're daily doing sacrifices and trying to throw up enchantments on this ministry, man. Just like during the time of Balaam and Balak, because that's where this this account, this scripture comes from, that account. Number 23 and 24. And what they were trying is, as Israel was coming into the promised land, Israel, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, Israel was coming through to the Holy Land, kicking ass and taking names, man. And these heathens were shook up. This Moabite king nigga was shook up. And he hired a warlock. All right. Balak, the Moabite king, he hired Balaam, this Midianite, okay? These two heathens that was trying to do what, man? They were trying to put enchantments and stop us, from getting our inheritance, man. You see, but the Lord was with us, man. You see, and Balaam, Balaam told Balak, like, look, there's no enchantment against Jacob. Needs there any divination against Israel. So he's telling him, look, I done tried everything. You can't enchant him, because the Lord had us shielded, under Joshua and Caleb. Okay, the Lord had the generation, okay, of the righteous, and he killed off, them wicked, complaining ass niggas, man. As he killing them off, there was a righteous generation, and the Lord was putting a hedge around. You see, and it says, according to this time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, what have the Most High wrought, or what, the most, because we're the Most High's work. You see, the Lord is building the kingdom, and it starts with us. You see, the Most High is preparing the kingdom for the world to come. It begins with what the people, all right? The first fruits, the men, is our teaching, and the rest of, the 1/3 men, women, and children, the believers. You see, the Most High is forming a kingdom, okay? And this kingdom is going to be an eternal kingdom. There's nothing that can be done against it. There's no enchantment that can stop us from building. His word going to accomplish what it's going to accomplish, okay? And ultimately, it's going to usher in the righteous kingdom, through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Al Shai. So there's no enchantment, the scripture say against Jacob. You see? So staying within, our power, being pleasing to our power, keeping on that full armor, where there's no enchantments. The enchantments of the elites don't penetrate. All right. Your co-worker, all right, or whatever situation you in, and people, because even manipulation is a form of enchantment. Even if it's someone trying to gaslight you, manipulate you, that's a form of enchantment. You see, it's witchcraft. It's low level, but it's witchcraft. But going into being in the spirit, you see, we're shielded from these things and they don't work. So that's the point. Just want to tap into that. Lord willing, brother, question was answered. Lord willing, you brothers and you few sisters edified. Once again, I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rekakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutation to the whole collect. Shalom.